All right, what I have learned about slippery elm so far. We'll start from the harvesting part, and then work towards use applications. First of all, you have to be able to identify the tree, and the easiest way is by looking at the leaf. But I've been able to identify it in the winter time just by looking at the shape of the tree and the bark. That might take a little bit more time. And then if I'm not 100% sure about what the tree is, I'll give the bark a little taste, pull off a little sample, give it a little taste, and when I find a tree that I want to use, I'll pull a lot of bark off, try to cut the whole branch off so that it's just as clean of a cut as I can. I don't want to necessarily strip the whole tree and leave it vulnerable. I'd like it to continue growing in the future for anybody else who wants to harvest slippery elm. But there have been circumstances where I've just stripped the tree down to the ground if it's a small tree and there's a ton of other slippery elm trees around it. Then I don't have as much of a problem being a little more reckless and stripping the tree. But if it seems like it's the only one that I see around the area, I'll be more cautious with getting some bark off of it. And then I'll strip the big pieces, the big branches, which I like. It feels more efficient to strip the big branches, but those little branches, these little pieces, they take a little bit more time. But I'm surprised how much they yield. All right, they're pretty good. In a way, almost better than the big branches. You could strip more from the big branches than the small ones. It feels more accomplishing to take the bigger stuff, to take it closer to the base of the tree. But the little ones yield quite a bit of gel that gels fast. A fast gel that's pretty good. It's a more slippery constitution to it than the bigger pieces. It's really a strange phenomena, and it really causes you to have to ask yourself if you're do you have the patience to strip this little pieces, because it's hard to really have patience for the little pieces, even though they yield so much of significant amount, because it seems so small. And you want to take off the outer bark, okay, because that's annoying. All right, I've played around with keeping the outer bark and dumping the outer bark, stripping off the outer bark. In general, it's best to default to getting rid of the outer bark. It takes more time, but there is gel in between the outer bark and the inner bark. So you don't want to cut corners and just ignore the outer bark. I've bought slippery elm in the past, and that commercial stuff, they strip inner bark and middle bark. Though they strip the wood, though you'll see wood pieces mixed in with inner bark. They get rid of the outer bark. I never, with the store-bought, in my experience, I've never seen the outer bark mixed in, but it seems like the inner wood gets mixed in sometimes. It's not as slick as the stuff that I can harvest myself. So, and I find in the regions that I find the best slippery elm, and that I actually find slippery elm trees are in the northeastern part. Definitely not west of the Rockies. They are west of the Mississippi River. They're not so far south as Arkansas, Missouri. I think I might have seen some slippery elm. I'm not exactly sure where it's the strongest in numbers, but I definitely know it's in Wisconsin. I know it's in the mid parts of the country, and based upon reports from George Washington's army during Valley Forge, when they survived on this stuff, this was food to them. I know that it's on the East Coast, so it's going to stretch from the mid country to the East Coast, not on the West Coast at all, and not so much in the South either. So I want to harvest and grab as much as I can while I have good access to slippery elm. And then my use, sometimes I'll use it as a food, but I use it more as a lubricant. Okay, and I threw them away already. That's right. I have been experimenting for many years with slippery elm, and it has revealed surprises, which I really shouldn't have been surprised, but I had to find out the hard way about how it's like a food. It's pretty much a food, and it rots just as easy as food. And me, my foolish self, I try to conserve as much as I can, so I try to make it last after I wet it, and it's a mistake. All right, as soon as you wet it, give it maximum 24 hours, if that, depending on how hot it is outside. A maximum of 24 hours to use it, and then you gotta toss it. And foolish me, I want to still use it as long as until I run out. Just simply because I wasn't accessing as many trees, and I was getting nervous about running out. As a skin emollient, I assume it can last over 24 hours, and you shouldn't. You should save it dry right until you want to use it. And this stuff lasts only as long as food after it gets wet. It's got a nice smell to it. But it's food, all right. You can put it on your skin. I use it as a skin emollient. It's really great. It's pretty much a wet emollient, a wet lubricant, a non-fat base. There's no fatty residue. When it dries, it's just like a cake. It feels weird. It feels like it should be rejuvenating to the face, but it's to the skin, but it's really not. What it does is stains the knuckles, and when you don't wash your hands enough, I get stained knuckles. This washes off. I don't have enough access to water like people who live in around plumbing more. I'm not living around plumbing. I'm relying on containers of water, not water getting piped to me. And I feel that this slippery elm has cleaning properties. I've noticed that it seems to clean copper cups, which I like to keep the slippery elm in. When I got 24 hours use after I wet some to use as a skin emollient, I want to keep it in an open container. I was experimenting with food containers, in closed containers to try to help preserve it. My attempts to preserve it, and it doesn't work. All right, I just have to keep it dry until right before use. Keep it in an open container. I keep it in just in a copper cup. Give it 15 minutes to wet, and then or so. It could be less than that actually. And then I could use it pretty quickly. Uh, it's kind of it's not a skin conditioner. It doesn't take wrinkles off the face, but it seems to make the hair feel different, like it's like softer hair. And when you don't shower every day like me, sometimes I put slippery elm in my hair, and it seems to pick up gunk. It seems to bind with gunk in my hair. So it's almost like getting a shower, but not quite. It's really interesting. And then it gels the hair too. It's like a hair gel as well. For people with longer hair, they could style their hair with this. And it dries. It's like I said, it's not an oil-based lubricant at all. It's water-based lubricant. And I wonder how the stores replicate water-based lubricants for the sex lubricants, because this is cells. This is like the natural cells that have developed to become water-based lubricant. Maybe the next closest thing to a slippery elm could be aloe, but I'm done with aloe. I'm out of that area, and aloe is a little more sparse anyway in the deserts. You could buy it in stores, but this stuff I harvested all just finding it on my travels around areas. And it's a water-based lubricant, and it dries. It dries to a very comfortable very comfortable, like, just in a very comfortable way. When it dries, it feels nice on the skin. It doesn't leave a residue, except, like I said, it darkens the knuckles, but I don't know, I could live with that. Consuming it is rare for me. I was getting like heartburn for a little bit, and it seemed to help that a little bit. I got like COVID, or a nasty flu that made my throat very sore. Slippery elm didn't really help enough. All right, I suffered about 24 hours with a sore throat towards the end, after about a week of suffering with the flu. The ending with the sore throat. Started out with achy bones, and then went to a sore throat, and I couldn't get relief with the slippery elm. I got some relief with the cloves, but that was only temporary, and I had side effects with like a slight upset stomach with the cloves. So slippery elm doesn't help with the most severe sore throats that result from a viral infection. Minor sore throats, yeah, a little dry, yeah, that helps, but not the major stuff that the viruses can cause. A painkiller, and the cloves are a painkiller, but that's temporary. But I use my slippery elm mostly for a skin lubricant. All right, and you could probably imagine what I'm focused on here. And I never want to run out. All right, I always want to have it available, and it feels good to be able to pick it myself, not rely on stores. And the stores are completely unreliable anyway. They don't they have some way, they have their own way of harvesting slippery elm, which involves wood chip pieces mixed in with everything. They're not doing it by hands. They're not extracting slippery elm by hand, which I am. Hand and knife. Just take a knife out there and strip away. Takes time. Well, this is kind of a weed for some places, but I haven't been seeing it. I mean, I'm entering southern Wisconsin, and I haven't seen really any slippery elm that stands out to me. And this is springtime, where the leaves are going to be obvious. I know it's around. It's in patches, so I keep my eye out for it. But this stuff, you don't ever want to mess around with it when it goes bad. 24 hours maximum, because I was experiencing pains pushing the limits, and I'll say that my urinal tract was getting a burning sensation, and I'm sure it was because of the infection that the slippery elm had. Once I realized that there was an infection happening with letting it with still using it after it rots, I stopped that, and no problems since. So you want to always have it fresh. You can't make it last after you wet it, but it certainly lasts a long time. I got some slippery elm that I got out of North Dakota a couple of years ago that I'm still using, that still can gel up. And it's a couple of years old. It just stays dry, and it dries fast. This doesn't need any comprehensive, any major drying process. Just leaving it out in the sun, it dries so fast. It doesn't seem to pick up moisture from the outside so much, but it certainly soaks up water when you put it in, mix it with water. And I only, at a time when I want to have a nice skin emollient, maybe this much at a time, I'll use. It's a measured dose. It takes some patience. If you don't feel you have enough, you could add more. But it's a balance of and patience, and you want to just balance out how much you use, because it comes down to your access to it, how much time you have to harvest the slippery elm. This stuff, actually, I think this stuff, a pan amount, this stuff could last me like a year, I think, because I'm very conservative about it. But I definitely always want to have a surplus in case there's particular instances where I want to use a little bit more than normal. But it's mostly a skin lubricant with the fallback to being a food source. Because I had a problem back like in 2008 when I just couldn't eat anything. I had a severe reaction, and after a week of starving, losing 10 pounds, I tried slippery elm, and I actually got a rush of energy. And if you're eating normally, you won't feel a rush of energy, but if you starve and then have slippery elm, you'll feel a rush of energy. All right, there is energy in this. It is a survival food. And I didn't realize that until I starved for a week and then tried it. And it was the only thing that didn't hurt my digestion, because everything was hurting. Chicken was hurting my digestion. Just anything I ate was hurting me. And I tried slippery elm, and that was not hurting me, so I turned to it a little bit more. It soothed everything, it nourished. So it's really one of the best types of I don't know, you call them herbs, I guess. One of the best herbs to have in reserve. That, and I think cayenne too. I always like to have cayenne ready, but I've never mixed the two together. Cayenne is too rough. This by itself, I don't mix slippery elm with anything. It's just something I just use by itself. I don't know what to experiment it with. Especially, I don't really notice anything in the regions that slippery elm does grow that I would mix it with anyway. So this has been a really good supplement for me that I think people should really get take another look at. I mean, it's largely rejected by society, and I wonder if the rejection could have been because of the Dutch elm disease that killed off a ton of elms a long time ago. And I wonder if maybe people were using slippery elm until the Dutch elm disease hit, and then it's just been kind of a forgotten source. I wonder, but I don't know. It's certainly something that I've been enjoying for years and years, and I've never really come across anybody who enjoys slippery elm as much as I do. So it's just kind of a niche thing, I guess. It's a niche lifestyle that rarely you'll see other people also indulge in. So I'm trying to spread the message that this is good stuff. Thank you for watching.